In the heart of a bustling Indian town stood a modest home surrounded by worn-out posters of wrestling champions, their faces faded but still holding a glimmer of pride. This was the house of Arjun Singh, a boy born with nothing but fire in his heart and grit in his soul. From a young age, Arjun was drawn to the Akhara near the Ganga Ghats, where wrestlers would practice in the mud with unmatched determination. While others played games and wandered aimlessly, Arjun spent his days watching the movements, the stance, the struggle. His eyes followed every match as if memorizing a sacred text. But Arjun wasn't blessed with strength. In fact, he was underweight, often ill, and considered too frail for wrestling. Neighbors whispered about the boy's pointless dreams. Even the Akhara's gatekeeper once waved him off. Yet every dawn, before the sun rose, Arjun would be there, sweeping the ground, refilling water pots, quietly observing, soaking in the spirit of the place. Years passed, and Arjun's body began to change, not from privilege, but from sheer consistency. He trained on his own, using makeshift equipment, lifting bricks tied to bamboo sticks, running barefoot across fields, using his own body weight to build strength. The Akhara finally took notice, but entering the ring wasn't the victory, it was just the beginning. Every day Arjun was thrown down, bruised, beaten, bloodied. But he never left the ring without getting up. That resilience began turning heads. Slowly, he climbed the ranks. He wasn't the fastest or the strongest, but he was unbreakable. Arjun's first local championship came with no fanfare, no family to clap, no friends to cheer. But he stood on the mat with a small medal around his neck, smiling like he had won an Olympic gold. From that point, things began to shift. State tournaments, national selections, higher training facilities. Arjun's name began circulating. Journalists called him the Mud Lion, the boy who rose from dust to dominance. He was selected for international training in Delhi. It was a new world: synthetic mats, digital timers, coaches with degrees, and diets planned to perfection. Arjun, who once trained with stones and sand, now had to adapt to modern methods. The pressure mounted. Expectations grew. Competitions became more intense, opponents more strategic. The sport he loved now came with politics, media noise, and sponsorship deals. Arjun began to struggle, not physically, but mentally. He started to doubt himself. The losses piled up. Social media mocked him. Hype without results, they wrote. Overrated village boy. But Arjun remembered where he came from. Not from applause, but from silence. Not from privilege, but from perseverance. Just a month before the national championship that could secure his entry into the Olympics, tragedy struck. His mother, the only family he had, passed away in her sleep. The woman who fed him roti with salt when there was no food, who sewed his first wrestling shorts out of old curtains, was gone. The world expected him to quit. Even his coach told him to rest, but Arjun went back to training the next morning, not to escape grief, but to honor it. Every lift, every lunge, every grapple was a tribute. He competed in the nationals with a black armband. In every match, he visualized his mother's face, and with each win, his resolve grew harder. He made it to the finals, against the reigning champion, a two-time title holder backed by major sponsors and a powerful training team. The match was brutal. Minutes stretched like hours. Bodies clashed, breaths heaved, sweat turned to blood. But when the final whistle blew, it was Arjun who stood tall. The stadium roared. Reporters scrambled, cameras flashed. But Arjun didn't smile. He looked up, eyes glistening. Somewhere beyond the ceiling, he believed his mother was watching. The national victory wasn't just a medal, it was a gateway. Arjun Singh had officially qualified for the Olympic trials. The journey that began in a dusty Akhara by the river had now reached the world's grandest stage. His days grew longer, training sessions doubled, diets became stricter. His life became a loop of sweat, silence, and solitude. While others enjoyed endorsements, Arjun shunned distractions. The only posters he looked at were of his past self, skinny, dusty, unheard, because that was who he still wrestled for. When the Olympic trials came, athletes from every corner of the country gathered. Giants, both in fame and form, surrounded him. Some had personal physiotherapists. Others had entourages of fans and camera crews. Arjun had only his coach and a worn-out duffel bag. The matches were unlike anything he'd faced. Faster, fiercer, more strategic. But something inside Arjun burned brighter than pressure. His style wasn't flamboyant. It was raw, relentless, and rooted in survival. Opponents who underestimated him learned that pain isn't always visible. It's in the eyes of someone who has crawled through hell and come out standing. He won, again and again. And finally, the announcement came. Arjun Singh, India's official representative in wrestling at the Olympic Games. His village erupted. News channels played his story. The boy who once lifted bricks now carried a nation's hopes. Yet Arjun remained quiet. The mountain was only half climbed. Tokyo. The Olympic Village buzzed with energy. Flags flew, cameras rolled, athletes from every nation wore gear emblazoned with pride. Arjun walked among them, not with swagger, but with steel in his step. Each match brought a new challenge. Opponents trained in foreign styles, unfamiliar arenas, time zones that distorted the body's rhythm. But Arjun adapted, absorbed, endured. He reached the semifinals, then the finals. India hadn't won a gold in wrestling in decades. The pressure was historic. As Arjun stepped onto the mat, the world watched. Across homes, in schools, in railway stations and remote fields, eyes fixed on the screen. The final bout was brutal. His opponent from Russia was a legend, unbeaten, untouchable. The match was a storm of strength and strategy. At one point, Arjun trailed, but with a sudden burst, rooted in every fall he'd taken, every insult he'd swallowed, every tear he never shed, he turned the tables. In the final seconds, he pinned his opponent. Silence. Then the referee raised his hand. Gold. Arjun didn't leap. He didn't shout. He simply kneeled, pressed his forehead to the mat, and let the weight of years fall from his shoulders. Back home, crowds wept. Old wrestlers raised his name in chants. The Akhara he once cleaned barefoot now bore his statue. But Arjun, he went back to the village, back to the mud, back to the Akhara. And there he began training the next generation, not just to win matches, but to rise when everything says you can't. Moral of the story: greatness doesn't begin with glory, it begins with grit. Success isn't in the medals we wear, but in the scars we carry silently. True strength is forged not in the spotlight, but in the dark. Be unbreakable, even when the world doubts you, even when you're alone, especially then.